Happy Monday, April 17th, 2023, and welcome to a sunny day in Atlanta edition of what I like to call the Isolation Cabin. I am your host, the vegan you believe in, Kirk Cadet in the flesh as always, and here on the Isolation Cabin, we like to talk about the different forms isolation takes on, whether positive or negative, the effect it has on us, and what we can do to get a better handle on it, a better understanding of it, and have a better quality of our lives going forward. So I want to talk to you guys today about isolating yourselves from friends that you can't trust and also friends that you know you've outgrown. Too often, we keep certain friends, certain people around in our lives, I guess because we've known them a long time and we're used to having them around. But deep down, some of us start to realize that those same friends aren't who we thought they were. They're not the same person that they were when we first met them, and not necessarily for good reasons. And as time goes on, you start to feel like you have less and less in common with them. And it's unfortunate and it's sad, but sometimes we have to make the decision to isolate ourselves from those type of friends, as much as it may hurt and as hard as it may be to do so. Because unfortunately, it's friends like that, and sometimes using the word friend is kind of a stretch when you describe some of them, will do nothing more than bring us down, ruin our good vibes, and just have a negative effect on us that in some ways we don't even realize until it's too late. Yeah, because admittedly, good friends are very hard to come by. Good friends are definitely people you need to not take for granted, but also bad, shitty friends and immature friends, fake friends. You got to know who they really are also, so that when you do recognize those qualities in them, it's not so hard to give them their walking papers. Because I know it's probably more common in high school than anywhere else. I could definitely speak from experience, where you just have certain people who pretty much just pretend to be your friends, who are friends with you just because you can do stuff for them, or they're friends with you just because they have no one else to hang out with and like you're the only person who will talk to them. And they're just friends with you because they know they can screw you over and do things to you, and they can still get away with it and you won't do anything about it. And sadly, that kind of behavior and that kind of way of treating people that are supposed to be your friends isn't limited to just high school. Some people just don't grow out of that mentality, and they just take that kind of mentality into their adulthood and become shitty friends as adults as well. And it's nothing more sadder to see than somebody who should be a grown adult, who should behave like a grown adult, act like a freaking 16-year-old child. It's freaking sad, pathetic too. So I'm saying, if you have those kind of friends in your lives, or so-called friends I should say, then just like the toxic family members I spoke about a few weeks ago, you don't need to keep their asses around either. And hey, even your closest, your best friend sometimes can piss you off and say the wrong things to you and do things that rub you the wrong way. That happens as well, I admit that. But there are small disagreements and small incidents that can be moved past, and then there's years of toxic behavior and bad behavior and untrustworthy behavior that after a while, the more you tolerate it, the more they're just going to keep doing it and getting away with it. Just like our current political system, the things we tolerate that continue to go on because we continue to tolerate them. But just like that said situation, you also have the power to say, I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. I'm not going to entertain this shit anymore. And I'm not going to keep your toxic, grimy ass in my life anymore. And I'm not saying it's an easy choice to make, and I'm not saying you probably won't wrestle with it a little bit, but sometimes those set friends can come to a point where they push you to that point where you just plain ask yourself, how the fuck was I even friends with this person in the first place? Yeah, because I've been through times in my past where I've had friends who I either outgrew or started to see their true colors, where I kind of maybe didn't want to believe it. And I constantly gave them the benefit of the doubt and always tried to defend them when they would do something that was wrong. But over time, the more I saw their true colors and the more I started to see that I was outgrowing these friends, the more I couldn't wait to kick their asses out of my life and never look back. Yeah, because when it gets to the point where like you're more annoyed by them than happy to see them and happy to hang out with them, then their ass has to go. Their ass has to freaking go. Because unfortunately, while there are some friends who will value your friendship and not take it for granted and always return the favor when you do things for them, there are also those type of so-called friends who will take advantage of your kindness and the things that you do for them. When you ask them to do them for you, they are nowhere to be found. Or if you do ask them to do those said things for you, they act like it's the biggest burden to end all burdens, and they just can't do it. They can't be bothered by it. And just like relationships, like I've spoken of before, friendships are a two-way street. If one friend is doing more for the other friend and the other friend won't lend a helping hand, period, to help that other friend out, then that person is not a friend. And that person does not deserve your friendship, your kindness, or to even be in your life, period. So what are the kind of friends that you need to watch out for that are grimy, that are untrustworthy, and that are ones that you don't need to keep around? The first one I would say is the one that simply uses you. You see it all the time, whether it's somebody who's popular in high school or a celebrity. A lot of them will have entourages, and many of the people they have in those set entourages are people who are simply just using them. Using them for free stuff, using them for free access into a nightclub, using them for free vacations, money, whatever you have, you attention, popularity. But the thing is, once you can't provide those things anymore, and once they can't get those things out of you anymore, they've gotten enough out of it from you and they want to get it from somewhere else, then basically you're not useful to them anymore. And when you're not useful to them anymore, they're going to give you the cold shoulder. They're going to ignore you. And people like that are simply just not your friends. They're not people you need to keep around. They're not people you need to entertain. And they're just not people who are deserving of any of your time. Yeah, and I know sometimes we need favors. Sometimes we might get ourselves into trouble or get ourselves into a jam, and we might call on a friend that we know can help to help. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you are that kind of person who would ask that friend for that kind of help, just make sure you would also be willing to do it for them. Because if you're not, that really says a lot about you. Another type of friend that honestly you should definitely distance yourself from and isolate yourself from is one who's constantly always getting into trouble and always surrounded by drama. I personally like to give people the benefit of the doubt because things happen in life, things go sideways, I get that, and sometimes you want to help out those friends who get into those said jams and said situations. But if it gets to a point where you constantly always have to bail them out and constantly have to listen to their problems and their drama and their bullshit and situations they constantly keep getting themselves into without taking any kind of accountability, then it's understandable if you get to a point where you've just had enough of their shit and you don't want to deal with it anymore. Because there's so many times you could listen to somebody talk about the same problem over and over again and come to you with the same problem over and over again until you finally get to the point where you realize that the big part of the problem is themselves. And until they try to do something to fix it, then they're not a good person to have around you. Because they're going to drain the energy and all the fun and happiness out of your damn life before you know it. And another type of friend that you should probably cut out of your life that will also drain the energy out of you are those friends that are always negative. Always negative, always complaining, always having some critical shit to say either to you or about someone else, and always gossiping and always talking about shit that most times has nothing to do with them. And overall, more than anything else, just someone who constantly has a cloud of negative energy around them. Because I'm going to tell you, I've had friends like that before, and it is a fucking nightmare. When they're always in a bad mood, always complaining, always talking about some drama, always getting into some drama. You just get to the point where you're like, motherfucker, shut the fuck up already. Go to therapy, go to a yoga class, do some exercise, but yo, get that negative shit away from me, please. Yeah, because it's tiring. And hey, I like to be understanding and I like to listen to people who might have issues they need to vent about and whatnot. But there's a time for venting and also there's a time for taking action and doing something about it. And if somebody spends more time venting and complaining than actually trying to come up with a solution, and it's always something negative and it's always something sour they come at you with and are always talking about, then yo, you don't have to be around that shit. So yeah, definitely, if you notice like you have certain type of friends who are always negative, always complaining, and always just never trying to come up with solutions to their problems and just stay stuck in them, then it's okay to keep your distance from them as well. Also, the type of friends you should definitely keep your distance from and isolate yourself from are the ones that cannot be trusted and who are unreliable. If there's one important quality in a friend, it's reliability. By reliability, I mean is that if you have some kind of problem or if you're in some kind of jam, that you know that you can come to them with that problem and they will help you get through it. And that you know that you can tell them certain secrets and they won't blab it to someone else. You can be honest with them. And if you need something and they can do it for you, they will do it. That's what I mean by reliable. And also, as far as being reliable, that they mean what they say and that they're a person of their word. So if you ask them to do something for you on a specific day at a specific time, they are there on that specific day at that specific time. But when you have a friend who cannot do those things, who falls short in all those areas on a regular basis, then I hate to say it, but you can't rely on them. And if you can't rely on them, then you can't really be friends with them. And it's a heartbreaker when you have a friend like that who you feel like you should be able to trust and who should be there for you, just constantly let you down every single time. It's a huge letdown. And it's especially a huge letdown when you know you would do it for them. Some people just get too consumed with themselves and too wrapped up into their own shit and just too unwilling to do for someone else that they're just incapable of being a good friend or a good spouse for that matter. You don't need to put up with that shit. You deserve better. And why do we keep some of these friends around? Even with all these things I described and even all these qualities I described, some people will still put up and keep some of these friends in their lives. And probably the biggest reason why they do that is out of fear of loneliness. I know specifically throughout middle school and high school, a lot of us are taught that, you know, having a lot of friends and having cool friends will make things better, will open doors for you, and not having any of that means there's something wrong with you, and that, you know, it's uncool and not right and not fun to have no friends or not have a lot of friends. And hey, I'm not gonna lie, as I've gotten older, I've had to learn the hard way that it's a lot harder to make close friends, and that it's a lot harder to stay in touch with friends that you knew growing up, because people get into their own lives, whether it be careers, whether it be marriages, having kids, all that other stuff. It can be hard to maintain those close friendships when you get older. I get it. And it can be lonely to not have close friends or have a lot of friends. And sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it can be depressing, but it's also not cool to keep friends in your life that make you feel like you're lonely also. Because those type of friends that I just described a few minutes ago are the type of friends where honestly you're much better off in your own company by yourself than being around any of those people. Yeah, because loneliness definitely has its downside. It definitely has its moments that aren't fun, but there is also a positive to it. When you can learn to enjoy your own company and your own presence, and you genuinely like yourself and know that you can depend and rely on yourself, and you have that form of self-love, then honestly anything that comes from a friend is simply a bonus. But if you have that at home and you have that inside yourself, then you don't necessarily need a lot of close friends. Because, like I said in the family episode several weeks ago, it is better to be alone than to be in bad company. And when that bad company is shitty ass friends who you know you can't trust and who are always a negative vibe and who are just simply trying to use you so they can get some free shit, yo, you don't need that shit. That would be the most miserable, depressing time ever to hang out with people like that. Like, if I have to choose between hanging out with people like that and just chilling at home watching Netflix, then I'll chill at home and watch Netflix. I am all for going out. I am all for, socializing and not closing yourself off from meeting people. But when you meet those people, you get to know those people, and those people turn out to be like that, then fuck that shit. No, thank you. I want to get as far away from those people as I can. And I just hope that eventually you can see some of those negative qualities in them as well, and you make the decision to distance yourself from them and realize that you're much better off without those people in your lives and being on your own than having a Saturday night hanging out with those people and still feeling like you're all alone anyway. But yeah, just remember, you choose your friends wisely and make sure your friends are people you can trust, and also that it's okay to isolate yourself from people who really aren't your friends and who you can't trust. I know people will, more than anything else, just suck all the fun and all the energy out of your life. Those kind of people you can stay as far the hell away from as possible. And the more you recognize those negative qualities in those other people, and the more you decide to distance yourself from them, then the more better you'll get to know yourself, the higher standards you'll set for friendships going forward, and the more you'll know of what you're willing to tolerate and also what you're not willing to tolerate. And the better understanding you have of that, and the more you're willing to stick by those principles, then the friends that you do let in your life will be ones that you know are for real and ones that you know are in it for the long haul. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my discussion today about isolating yourselves from friends who are toxic and friends who mean you no good. And I hope you take this advice to heart and definitely exercise it more as time goes on. And if you want to follow me, if you could follow me on any of my social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, my first last name, Kirk Cadet. You could also listen to this podcast on Spreaker as well as YouTube. Leave a comment under the videos below and let me know what you like about the show, don't like about the show. And as always, I will be back every week talking about this issue of isolation, how it affects us both in a good way and a bad way, and what we can do to have a better understanding of it and use it to build a better lives for ourselves going forward. And until next time, this is Kirk Cadet for another edition of this set Isolation Cabin, and I will see you guys next time. Take care and God bless.